Christians are having kids that far outpace to non-Christians. The problem is we don't teach them a biblical worldview. They go to college and they get indoctrinated. Brainwashed. Then they fight for the progressive vision. So Christians are supplying the human beings for the revolution against our own faith.
Well, today I have the privilege of talking with John Cooper of Skillet. John, we have had a number of times to talk over the years, and I always enjoy chatting with you. So I feel like each time we go a little bit deeper. So I'm looking forward to our conversation. I want to just dive straight in.
Dive in, baby.
You have a new book coming out with a title that I think is bound to provoke a response. It's called Wimpy, Weak, and Woke. And read it, loved it, endorsed it. You talk about how you increasingly found yourself under pressure to conform to, I guess we'll call it maybe a progressive mindset in some ways. Talk a little bit about what that looked like and just how you responded to that. Because there was a time in your career where you probably wouldn't have maybe responded to it.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that the culture, I think everybody would agree, and I don't think I have to prove it, the culture's just shifting at a really super fast pace, right? And I found it really just confusing. I mean, I don't mind admitting it. I like to tell people that because I think that even now, I talk to friends of mine who a lot of them have young kids, parents. I've talked to everybody from all sorts of spectrums, Christian, non-Christian, liberal, Republican, whatever. Everybody's sort of like, I don't really understand why the world's changing so quick.
Yeah.
And so I want them to know, I feel you. And 2013 is when it started happening for me. I started going, I don't understand the things that Christians are saying. And some of the pressure I was feeling, I'm not a conformist, I would never just do it.
That's a shocker.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I don't need to say that. So I knew that I would never say something because I was pressured to.
Yeah.
What started happening with me was going, but wait a minute, but all these Christian people are saying it, and I admire all these Christian people. I kind of disagree with them, but maybe they know something I don't. So it started kind of having this, maybe I don't understand the Bible. And I remember saying to my pastor, 2014, I said, hey, can I talk to you? I just said, I got to be honest. I got saved when I was 5. Mm-hmm. I became a serious follower of Christ in college.
Okay.
Understood the Bible enough at that time. Loved the Bible. I said, I've never been confused until now on how to live for Jesus. What does it mean to live for Jesus? It has never been confusing, and I just don't know what to do. And frankly, I wasn't getting any answers I felt from anybody. And so the pressure for me wasn't you need to say this or you're going to lose your job. It was more if you're not saying this, then you're not standing up for Jesus. And I'm going, well, I want to stand for Jesus, but I don't think I agree with that.
Yeah, so the whole idea of even what it meant to stand for Jesus felt like it was changing, if I'm hearing you.
That's what I'm trying to say. And a lot of it now, I can define it now.
Sure.
Now a lot of that, I would call it more like progressive, secular social justice. Mm-hmm. Standing up for the victim. Those kinds of things. And I want people to understand when I say that, I don't mean the victim as the Bible would describe a victim.
Yeah.
The way the progressive world describes the victim. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I just didn't get it. And so once I started understanding, I went into a time when I read about 150 books from 2013 to 2016.
Wow.
Just I read theology, philosophy, everything I could find, political philosophy, and finally came to the decision. I may have told you this in one of our other interviews, but I was in bed. I finished reading a book, and a light bulb went on. And I looked at my wife and I said, oh my gosh, I finally figured it out. 3 years. This is going to show people how daft I really am, by the way. It took me 3 years to realize that we really were living in a world of postmodernism. I had studied postmodernism in college.
Yeah.
I never thought anybody would believe it because it was just whack theories.
Right.
So you're studying it oh, that's kind of fun.
Right.
And then you saw the movie The Matrix and you're like, oh, that's kind of like postmodernism. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I never believed in a million years that people would believe it. And society is postmodern now. And even the church is becoming postmodern. And that's the reason I'm so candid about this. That is not true, and we have to fight it. That's why.
Well, let's dive a little bit deeper in that, because obviously we're living in this crazy time of political and social and spiritual polarization. And I think it's an especially difficult time for parents, right? And for Christian parents who are trying to help their kids embrace their values. And yet I find myself, even with my kids, having conversations. It's like, okay, here's what we believe. Here's how it's important to talk about this carefully, or you may end up in trouble. And then it's like, well, how do I strike that balance between helping our kids genuinely love people who maybe have a totally different perspective, but not caving into some of those woke and progressive pressures? Because it just feels like it's out there everywhere.
It really is. And I think that this isn't what you asked, but I think this is a really good example to explain to people that might not quite understand why this is such a big issue. What I call wokeness, what maybe you refer to as being woke, wokeness is a totalizing worldview. And a lot of Christians still don't understand that. They think we're just, why are you harping on culture war? Why are you making such a big deal about the fact that, you know, one of the things that happened with me recently with drag queens coming to the Christian music industry, calling themselves Christian drag artists. Why are you making such a big deal about this culture war? What they don't understand is that wokeness is a totalizing narrative. And that is the reason that everything is being, in other words, it's not just views of sexuality that are being upended. It's not just political views being upended. It's not just views on the Middle East that are being upended. It's every single aspect of your life, because wokeness is a totalizing religion. Christianity is a totalizing religion. The kingdom of God is a totalizing kingdom. Christ is king over everything. That's the reason it feels like I can't even watch the news. I can't even have a conversation. Everything's exploding. I'd like to share something that I wrote in the book. That might help parents. Maybe it helped me. When I was a kid, it used to annoy me so much when my parents would say, "Don't wear your hair long," you know, and I'd be like, "Why? Why?" And they'd be like, you know, "Because I said so. I'm the parent. When you get your own house, you can wear your hair long." And I'd be like, "But,"
and here you are.
And I don't have enough hair to make it long anymore. But I got more than you. It looks like
you're winning. You're winning, definitely.
And so it's like, but you know, you kind of extrapolate that conversation onto more important topics. Right? Don't watch pornography. Why? Because I said so. Don't blah, blah, blah. Why? Because I said so. Here's what I want to share with parents that I really think could help, is that the Bible gives us God's moral law. That's what theologians always call it, moral law. But God tells us how we're supposed to live, right? This is how you please me. And this is what, when you don't do these things, you're sinning. You're outside of my will. That moral law coincides with the world that God created. So when God says, don't do a thing, he's not just saying, because I said so. Right. Now he is the boss, and he did say so, and that's good. But there's also a reason why. And when you do that thing, there are consequences. It hurts you. It's bad for you. So yes, it's because it's God saying, here's my moral law. I want you to obey me because I'm righteous, and I want you to live righteous. But also things go better for your life. And
because it's the way he designed it.
Because he designed it. So the world works in a certain way to work with it. So one of the examples I like to give, because I think it really helps people, is if your kids are like, but I'm being told that homosexuality is just like heterosexuality. It's just you're born this way and it's not this and the other. And then Christian parents, that's not what the Bible says. But there's a deeper answer to that. And one of the deeper answers would be this. I want parents to imagine that the only way to produce children, let's just say the only way to produce children was in a same-sex union. Two men come together and they produce children, or two women come together and they produce children. But it's impossible to produce children with one man and one woman. Let's say that. But the Bible still says that sex is to be between one man and one woman. Well, that would be really weird. God would be saying, I want you to do this. And you'd say, why? He's like, because I said so. Things don't go good for your life if you do that. You'll never have children. You'll never have the amazing joy it is to have a kid. and you'll never experience that oneness and yada yada. But that's the way that I want it to be. Well, that would be really bad. That would be really frustrating.
Yeah.
But God doesn't do it that way. So I think that we can begin to have these conversations. It's going to require work on the parents' part to dig into God's world He created, so we can begin to understand. Here's the reason. Of course, we don't hate gay people. We don't hate anybody. That's like what it means to be a Christian. Of course, we don't want to just yell at people and tell them this. It's for their own good. They are missing out on God's design, on the beauty of the world He created.
Yep.
And we could do the same with pornography, just so people don't think we're picking on one particular sexual sin. Pornography is the same. You probably know better than me. The statistics I've read of the amount of college-age men on erectile dysfunction meds, it's nearly 30% of college kids. And a lot of the psychologists, even the secular psychologists, are saying there's something happening with pornography at a young age that is messing people's brains up.
Yep.
Well, we know that because we're Christians.
Right.
And so it's not just because I said so. This is going to benefit you.
Yeah. I know with my own family, we're asking those questions. What does God say here, and what is His purpose and intent? It's not just here's the behavior, but there's a purpose and a design. And like you're saying, when we deviate from that design, there are consequences, and it doesn't work right. And you end up with, you're just amplifying the brokenness. So,
amen. I wish I had said it that way. Dang it.
No, you're
amplifying the brokenness, people.
When you know about amplifiers. So,
yes, we know what amplifiers do.
You can run with that. Well, let me just pivot a little bit. You have an amazing platform in Skillet and an opportunity, I'm guessing, to hear from people and to hear from kids. What are you hearing today about how kids are doing, and how has that changed from maybe where kids were at, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years ago? Because you've been doing this for a minute now.
Yes. I mean, I will say, I don't want to sound too alarmist or too negative. I'm always hopeful because the gospel of Christ is so freeing. And what is it? I'm not ashamed of the gospel. It is the power of God for salvation. So I'm not hopeless.
Yeah.
But things are pretty bad. Now, let's rewind 20 years ago. Because a lot of people watching are probably parents, and maybe they grew up listening to music in the early 2000s, maybe late 90s. They remember what people were like then. I'm not going to say like everything was perfect. There was a lot of glorification of sex and music, obviously. We call that hedonism, a little bit like just like, hey, pursue pleasure. That's all that matters. Just get yours. It's going to be great. Have fun. YOLO, do it all.
Yeah.
And there was that. There was also a darkness in music in the 90s in particular, if you remember. Very nihilistic time, right? But it's different now. I would say then, when I would talk to young people at shows, a lot of them, they just didn't feel that their lives mattered. And it was an amazing opportunity for the gospel because we're like, I got good news for you. You do matter. Not because I'm Mr. Nice Guy telling you so, because the Bible says so. You're created in the image of God. You know that God, who keeps the universe going, knows your name and knows everything about you and wants you to talk to Him. He wants you to know Him and to call Him by name. Woof! This is amazing stuff. Now what we're dealing with is something even more depressing than that. It's people that not only do they not think that they matter, they don't even care that they don't matter because nothing matters. It's like, it really is full nihilism now. Nothing matters at all except for...
Which is kind of the fruit of postmodernism. I mean, tying back into what you were talking about earlier.
It is 100% the fruit of postmodernism. Nothing matters because there is no truth. And so the only thing really that matters is me feeling good about myself and all about my feelings.
Yeah.
And so I just need to just always feel that no one's hurting me and no one's doing anything bad about me or saying anything that's going to hurt my feelings, because that is going to then take away the only thing I have, which is the entire meaning of my life, which is feeling good about myself. And meanwhile, that kids don't feel good about themselves.
Right.
And so I keep raising this thing with people, and they say, What would you say to young people about this? I would say,
That was my next question.
oh, is it?
Yeah, so
Well,
carry on.
there you go. I just say to young people, if what the world is promising you is good, then why are things going so bad?
Oh, that's a great question.
It's just so in your face. If sexual liberation was going to bring you happiness, if teaching 4-year-olds radical gender theory and letting them know that you can choose your gender and a boy can wear a dress and a girl can do whatever, and we're gonna end up taking you down a road where we give you hormone blockers and maybe we transition you. If all of that was going to work, if pornography was going to work, if sexual liberation was going to work, why has it increased the amount of young people with mental health problems?
Yeah.
Why has it increased suicidal ideation and suicide?
Yeah.
Why has it increased the amount of kids who are on even medication? I don't even mean just drugs. I mean like actual medication.
Right.
Why do we have 30% of college males on ED meds? This is just something I had never even heard of until I started reading the literature. So, I mean, that's usually something that people in their taking their 60s and 70s. So I would just say to people, why are things not going good? And I'm actually seeing some fruit from this. So I give a little positive, hopeful thing for people. Some of my non-Christian friends who have been atheists for decades and decades, I would consider them on the left, kind of progressive. I would say morally libertarian, certainly on the progressive in politics. They are beginning to say, all right, wait a minute. Maybe
not working.
Maybe things aren't going good. I even heard one of my friends like, okay, I've said a lot of bad things about Christian culture my whole life, and now I'm looking at it going, maybe that wasn't so bad. You know, like maybe Christian culture is, because this guy, he's on the left.
Yeah.
But he's like, John, my kid came home with like a gender unicorn from school. He's like, they're teaching them, but he's like, what's going on? All the things we're seeing in Israel, when you see college kids cheering Hamas, cheering the brutality that we saw, which I thought that one episode sort of proves the entire point of my book that I'm positing. We are destroying Christian culture, Christian civilization. And even a lot of people that aren't saved are beginning to go, all right, maybe Christian civilization wasn't so bad after all. Yeah. Those people are ripe for the gospel.
Wow. So last question. I don't think parenting has ever been easy. You're a parent. You've gone through it yourself. What would you say to parents today who have maybe tweens or teens that maybe they're wrestling with some of these identity issues? Maybe they're wrestling, there's a whole spectrum of stuff, right, that you just mentioned. I mean, all of the issues with mental health, that sort of thing. Just a word of encouragement about how we connect with them and help them.
Okay. Sort of vision. If somebody said, John, what's the number one thing we have to do to save America? I with all my heart, the number one thing to do is godly families. That's it. Even if, and I'm not trying to be rude to any churches or any pastors, but let's just say you go to a church that you might be like, I'm not really sure my leaders are doing the best job on these issues, or maybe I wish they were doing more, whatever that situation is. I actually believe it's more on the families. I think that strong, godly families will then comprise a godly church, right? It's on the family.
Certainly it focused on the family. We're in complete agreement with
yes,
you.
Yes, obviously, right? Yes. I didn't even think of that when I said it. I forgot.
You are in the right place,
I'm in the right place. I didn't think about
You're
that.
on message.
Well, I absolutely believe in that message 100%. So vision is we can do this. We can do this. And sadly right now, as you know, we're not Americans aren't having kids. The entire West is not having kids.
Right.
But Christians are having kids that far outpace to non-Christians. The problem is we don't teach them a biblical worldview. They go to college and they get indoctrinated. Brainwashed. Then they fight for the progressive vision. So Christians are supplying the human beings for the revolution against our own faith. Parents have got to do the job. The second thing's got to happen. parents then are going to have to do the work. And I know this is what I think is different than 20 years ago.
Okay.
Raising kids has always been hard. It's different now because 20 years ago, secular atheist people agreed in general with morality with
Right.
Christians. They might be like, I don't live my life. I know it's not good to go get drunk, but
Right.
I want to,
Right.
get over it. That
We
goes
would have still said pornography is bad 20 years ago.
nobody
but
would be
today,
bragging.
nobody even wants to say there's a problem here.
I never heard one of my unsafe friends brag on watching pornography.
Right.
Or admit it.
Right.
No, never. And I think that's the biggest difference between music then and now, which we may get to in a second. But we see that in music too. Then it was all about having fun. Now it's all about sex and all the various things you want to do, except that they say, yeah, because it's virtuous to do it. So back then it wasn't virtuous to watch pornography.
Right.
Now it's if that's who you are, then you are being the best you by being true to your authentic self. Watch pornography, do all this sexual
Right.
whatever. So Christian parents now have to understand these philosophies. And then the third thing the parents have to do, and I know that not all parents feel equipped to do this, but I would encourage them to really do the work, whether it's reading books, listening to podcasts, to understand these things, to be able to see something in culture, sit down at the dinner table, and then bring it up and say, I'd like to explain to you why this is not good. And every day provides you
Yeah, there's
brand
plenty of
new
opportunity.
examples, right? And I think that the Hamas thing is a really great example because you could say to your kids, look, there's this, however you want to deal, a territorial dispute with Israel, Palestine, maybe don't even fully understand it, but what I know for sure is that you cannot cheer the rape and baby murder against anybody. You wouldn't, if we said, hey, aren't you glad that Hitler and the German soldiers, aren't you glad that we, got rid of them? Of course I'm really glad. Aren't you really glad that they went in and we raped all their wives and cut their babies' heads off? You'd say, no, that's demonic.
Right.
And it's a great opportunity to explain to your kids, this is a demonic thing. They think they're standing up for justice.
Yeah.
We're cheering Hamas because we want justice against us. And they have gone to the point that they're cheering on baby murder. Speaking of, guess who else cheers on baby murder? Americans. 800,000 babies aborted a year. I looked it up. Do you realize that and this is not funny. I'm sorry I'm laughing because it's so shocking, but it's over a quarter, over 25% of babies each year are aborted in this country. It's absolutely crazy. But all of our celebrities cheer it on.
Yeah.
Just like Hamas cheers it on. So it's a great opportunity.
Although I will say it was interesting for Britney Spears recently to come out and
read that.
and say that, this is a tangent, but she expressed regret.
Yes,
she
she
said
did.
it was one of the most horrible things that has ever happened to her. And I was certainly not thankful that she had that experience, but you don't actually hear that perspective very often.
You know what?
Anyway, not to
no, you are absolutely
pick your argument
right.
apart, but
Well, I think what it is with somebody with her platform.
yeah,
She is saying what millions and millions of women are saying, and it's even. Well, I won't get into that right now.
yeah.
The point,
Anyway, back to the point.
Yeah, no. The point is that every day we'll give you new opportunities to explain to your kids. Okay, here's what the celebrities. The celebrities that your friends all really idolize.
Yeah.
You got to understand what they're actually saying. They're cheering it on. I'd like to give one example, if I could, that is a little crass, but the singer Demi Lovato.
Yes.
Demi Lovato released a song this year on the anniversary of Roe being overturned, and it was her sort of anti-pro-life song.
Yeah.
And in that one song, she encapsulates so much evil. In that song, she supplies us with the best pro-life argument we always give, which is that people are not killing their babies because they can't afford it.
Yeah.
They're killing their babies because they want to have sex with whoever
Yeah.
Whoever I want to, whenever I want to. I don't want to use birth control because I should be able to do whatever I want.
Yeah.
It is pure narcissism, pure evil. And then she's screaming at all the people who are saying that this is murder. So she now is, this would be sort of like, well, I mean, I don't want to be too alarmist, but that is sort of like the Hamas crowd, like the cheering Hamas crowd. We are standing up for something that's just, we think, even though it's really evil and wicked. Have those conversations with your kids. It's going to require some work for you to understand the worldview. But for my kids, when they began to understand those things, they were like, this is horrific. They're cheering on the killing of babies. Their minds were just, I remember showing my daughter a video from, I'm sure people I hope know, Shout Your Abortion. Shout Your Abortion is the ones that they say, you shouldn't be embarrassed about it.
Yeah.
It's like we say with faith, like, don't hide your faith.
Right.
Don't hide your faith under a lamp. What good is that? Share your faith in Jesus. Be proud of Christ. They do the same thing with abortion. I remember when I first showed my daughter Shout Your Abortion, it was one of those moments of, I had no idea people were capable of this kind of evil. It's a really long answer, but.
No, it's a great, no apologies. I mean, I think at Plugged In and at Focus on the Family, we talk about the importance of intentionality and conversation and engagement.
Yes.
And I think there was a time, and I'm summarizing what you've already said. I think there was a time in our culture where we could depend on the culture to be backing us. The culture had our back because it was still close enough to a Judeo-Christian ethic that we still had a sense of right and wrong, even if people didn't know Jesus. And 100%. What you're saying is that world is gone. And
totally gone.
And something completely different has replaced it that places the emphasis on self and on feeling, I think. And that's the place to start anyway.
And I think that's one of the dangerous things. I think that there's a lot of really well-meaning, good-hearted Christian leaders that go, okay, then, so how are we going to reach people now?
Right.
And what they are doing is trying to create this sort of third way mentality to where we kind of hold a biblical truth, but we don't tell the new school, the new world, we don't tell them that what they're doing is wrong because that might push them away further. And so they have this weird, they're trying to bridge a gap that cannot be bridged. It just can't. It really is a little bit more like, not to the level of yet, we're getting there, to, I think, New Testament Christianity. The New Testament Christians that were, I read something from a secular historian from the first century. I think it was about 150 AD. Okay. And he was explaining what this, what he called a sect of Judaism called Christians. He was explaining what they were like. And he was saying they're extremely generous. He's saying all these things that sound like they help the poor. He's like, there's always women and the poor in their crowds. Like they treat women really well. They treat the poor really well. And this and this and this. He says, but it's really strange. They will always share their food, but they never share their women.
Oh, wow.
How about that?
That's amazing.
Talk about living in a time. So how many of these Christians at the time were saying, well, no, you're not wrong that you want to celebrate orgies or polygamy or whatever it is that they did in those times, and obviously all the other stuff they did.
Right.
They didn't tell them, oh, you're not wrong, because they'll push them. No, they said what was true. They lived the life, and this historian is like, they're kind of weird because of that, but what can I say? They help the poor, and they're so good to women. It's like nobody is too despised for this group of people. The secular Roman.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Love that. Well, John, thanks for taking some time to talk to our Plugged In audience today. I always enjoy talking with you and your perspective, so thank you very much.
Likewise.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed our conversation with John Cooper today. And if you want to learn more about his new book, Wimpy, Weak, and Woke, you can come to pluggedin.com and we'll have information for you there. And you can also follow, like, and subscribe on Instagram and Facebook. Thanks.